Dear students, in today's class, I will discuss lesson 3 of unit 3. And you know the title of unit 3 is Dreams, and the title of lesson 3 is I Have a Dream. Basically, it's a famous speech by Martin Luther King Jr. And this speech is focused on, this is an abridged version, what you will read in lesson 3 of unit 3 about the speech of Martin Luther King Jr. I Have a Dream, the title of which is I Have a Dream. This is not the full speech delivered by him. This is the abridged version. And basically in this speech he talks about the oppression and suppression of the Negro people. That means the kind of suppression they faced, they experienced. And he talks about the rights, and he talks about the freedom and rights of the Negro people. And basically his speech is very famous because of the metaphors, the similes, the imageries, the kind of references, allusions he uses, and the poetic language of his speech. So what we want to do, that when we will read his speech, when we will read this lesson, we will try to identify the important and powerful areas of his speech, the style he used and the content he used, the persuasive tone he used, and the poetic language he used. So keeping all these things in our mind, we want to start his speech. So let's start reading the lesson 3, I Have a Dream. Okay, dear students, now we are starting the lesson. Lesson 3, I Have a Dream. And I have already said that this extract, this passage is basically an abridged version, that means short version of a famous speech made by Martin Luther King Jr. on 28 August 1963. So it's a great speech, and it was delivered by Martin Luther King Jr. on 28 August in 1963 in Washington, D.C. in the United States of America. So we will read the speech first. And Martin Luther King was a leader, and of course he was speaking on behalf of the Negroes, the black people. And you all know that the conflict or the racism still exists everywhere, almost everywhere in the world. And sometimes you can also see it, observe it in the newspapers, in the news channels, electronic channels as well, that how the blacks are still discriminated in different countries. And this is exactly the speech is basically about ensuring the rights of the black people, the Negroes. And this is historical in the United States. And Martin Luther King delivered this speech in order to ensure the human rights, the basic human rights of the Negroes. And he was trying to convince the American people, basically the white people, that unless the black people or the Negroes are elevated to a good standard, then the United States as a whole, or the United States as a country, will not prosper, because you cannot prosper keeping a large portion of the population in the dark. And if you don't allow them to prosper in life, then they cannot contribute to the financial ability, financial strength of the state. So that is why it is important. And this is also important from humanitarian point of view as well, because human beings have to be treated as human beings, not in terms of their color. And that is why he made the speech. Now you see the speech starts with 3 dots, so it means that the speech starts somewhere. It can start in the middle, or some sentences have already been spoken, but those sentences have not been used over here. So 3 dot means that some lapses are there. Lapses means some sentences have been skipped at the beginning. So after that it starts. Why is it done in this way? Why not the full text is given? Because the full text or the full speech is a bit long one. So that's why some part of the speech has been omitted. And 3 dots, I again repeat, it means that some a part of the speech has been omitted at the beginning. And now it starts. The Negro is still not free. The Negro, it means basically probably he said he is not still free. So if the passage starts like this, that he is not still free, so who is not still free? That is why in the bracket the or T has been used in order to make you understand that he is talking about the Negro people. And since it starts from the middle or somewhere from in his speech, not from the beginning of the speech, that's why it has been used. I mean, T has been used. The Negro is still not free. So that is how the speech starts over here. But remember that it's not the way he started his speech because some part has been skipped. The Negro is still not free, and then full stop. So what he says that the Negro people in the United States are not still free. The life again three dot means that after this sentence again some sentences have been dropped or skipped in order to make it shorter, in order to make the speech shorter. I mean the major portion of the speech has been accepted over here, has been taken over here. Why? Because to make it shorter than the original speech. The life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation. I have already said that now I want to repeat that this speech is replete with, is full with poetic language, metaphors, similes, imageries, ironies. So he has used poetic style in his speech. And why has he used poetic style in his speech? Because that if you use poetic style, then it becomes easier to convince the people. You must evoke the emotions of the people, otherwise your speech will not work. So you can remember Bangabandhu's speech delivered on 7th March. Now, what we observed in Bangabandhu's speech, that he evoked the emotion of the people. He used poetic language. So that's why I made the comparison that over here, Martin Luther King, he is also trying to do that. He is trying to evoke the emotions of the people. He is trying to make the people understand that what is being done is not justice. The life of the Negro is still sadly crippled. Crippled means paralyzed. Crippled means whose body is not functioning properly. So the Negro people have been paralyzed. Have been they are not allowed to function. They are not allowed to work, flourish. So that's the meaning of cripple. By the manacles of segregation. Manacles means shackles. So chains, shackles or chains. So chains of or shackles of segregation means discrimination. So the life of the Negro people has been chained by the means of discrimination. So the Negro people are not allowed to flourish themselves because they have been discriminated. I am again telling you the meaning of cripple. Cripple means paralyzed. Cripple means not being allowed to work properly. So the Negro people are not being allowed to flourish themselves. Their life has been crippled, paralyzed. Their mentality, their spirit has been paralyzed. And how they have been paralyzed, not physically. Remember this is not physical paralysis. They are not physically crippled. They are physically okay, but their mind, their spirit has been crippled by the shackles or by the chain of discrimination. So once they are discriminated by the chains of segregation, they cannot flourish properly. And the chains of discrimination, the repetition of the same thing. The Negro leaves again three dots. That means again some sentences have been of his speech have been dropped over here. So wherever you find three dots, just remember that some part of the speech has been dropped, and after that again it starts. Why? I have said the most important, not only the entire speech is important, but the most important part has been selected over here. The Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. So that is the reality of the United States at that time. What is the reality? The Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty. It's a beautiful language. It's a kind of imagery. And what kind of imagery he draws, and it's also kind of metaphor. The Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty. The island, of poverty has been compared to the loneliness or to the people or to the lives of the Negroes. Island of poverty. So lonely island of poverty. So this has been compared with the lives of the Negroes. So how are the Negroes living? As you see, if some people live in a lonely island, and if the island is a lonely island of poverty, similar is the condition of the Negro people. They are living in an island of poverty. So it's a beautiful way of expression. They are living in an island of poverty. Not only island, it's the lonely island. Why lonely island? Because their land, I am again telling this, these are symbolic, these are allegorical language. Symbolic or allegorical, it means, symbolic means that the symbol, one word is used to symbolize another meaning. Allegory is basically a kind of device which is used in literature where there is a surface story and there is an underneath story. So the surface story is, or the symbol is, a lonely island of poverty. Now, the lonely island of poverty stands for the impoverished condition of the Negro people in the United States. I again repeat, lonely island of poverty refers to the impoverished condition or poor condition of the Negro people in the United States of America. In the midst, they are living in an island of poverty, in the midst of vast ocean of material prosperity. So just think, there is a vast ocean. There is a vast ocean of material prosperity. That means the ocean is refers to the life of the white people. So the white people are living in the ocean of material prosperity, means financial prosperity, commercial prosperity. So the people, I mean the white people are living in the ocean, vast ocean, big ocean of commercial prosperity. And in that big ocean of commercial prosperity of the white people, the Negro people are living in a lonely island of poverty. So look at the imagery. The imagery is there is a vast sea, and the sea refers to the material or commercial prosperity of the white people, and in that vast sea there is an island. The island is a lonely island of poverty. So it's a beautiful imagery that in a vast ocean of material prosperity of the white people, there is a lonely island of poverty inhabited by the Negro people who are discriminated. The Negro is still languishing. Languishing means suffering, having pains. The Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society. So the Negro, we are talking about, you can remember, when did he deliver the speech? On 28 August 1963. So just try to gauge whether the situation has improved or how far the situation has improved. So it's a question. The Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society. So the Negro people are still not living in the middle of the American society. It doesn't again mean the physical, staying. It means the symbolic staying. Why? Because the Negro people are still cornered. They are living on the outskirt of the American society because they have no space in the middle of the society. It means that they are not in the important position of the society. They are not the key makers. They are not the decision makers. So they are not enjoying the important position of the society. Rather, they are deprived of this kind of power. They are deprived of this kind of status. And they are living in the corners of the society, on the outskirt of the society, not in the middle of the society. So they are nowhere near the middle of the power, nowhere near the middle of significance, and finds himself an exile. Exile means, is an immigrant. Exile means the person is not a permanent resident over here. He has been exiled. He has been banished. He is not like the citizen of America, as if he is a foreigner. So he is himself an exile. So if in his own land, so if a person starts believing, if a person starts thinking, or he is forced to think, if a person is forced to think that he is a foreigner, he is an alien, and he is an immigrant in his own land, then what benefits, what outcome can you expect from that person? So that is the condition of the Negro people. The Negro people are treated as foreigners in the United States of America, as if they are not the residents of the United States. That was the condition when Martin Luther King Jr. delivered this speech. You know that how much the condition has changed. So we have come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. To dramatize doesn't mean or it doesn't indicate anything negative. It indicates over here, dramatize indicates that the sorrow that we cherish, that we nourish in our minds, the pains that we have in our minds, we possess in our minds, we cannot express them. So dramatize over here means that we are trying to express we are trying to manifest our tragic condition through this speech, through this procession. So that is exactly what Martin Luther King is saying. He is saying that we are trying to give manifestation of our expression through this rally. So that is what Martin Luther King wants to mean. I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. So he is saying that, my friends, we are facing the difficulties today and tomorrow, we are facing difficulties. We are facing difficulties every time. But should we stop dreaming? Definitely not. We will not stop dreaming. I still have a dream. He says that I still have a dream and I have not stopped dreaming. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. And he says that my dream is deeply rooted in the American dream. American dream, you can say, is a kind of concept that developed basically after the Second World War, basically. And the dream was already there. But what does this American dream indicate? This American dream indicate to seize the day. This American dream indicates that the United States opened prosperity and possibility and prospect in front or before the citizens of the country, and commercial capitalism emerged. It emerged so rapidly, and it gained momentum so rapidly that a new world became open in front of the people, and the white people were getting the benefits of this American dream. The people wanted to be rich, the people wanted to change their lifestyle overnight, and everyone wanted to prosper in life, and America developed. This development started obviously before the Second World War. After the First World War, the prosperity of America started, and it gained momentum after the victory in the Second World War. And this gave spirit to the American people. The American people, the American dream, it made the human beings, not made the citizens of the United States to explore the world, to explore their life, to explore their dream, new dream, and to prosper in life in terms of material prosperity and in terms of everything. But the Negro people, they were deprived of it. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. He says that I think that one day our nation, when he says nation, it doesn't simply mean the black people, it doesn't simply mean the white people, it means or it indicates all the citizens of the United States. Creed means religious belief or faith, or a strong faith. And what is the faith? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. So this line has been quoted from the Constitution of the United States, that we hold these truths to be self-evident. So what is written in the Constitution? It's written that we have to be truths have to be self-evident. So you don't need to explain truth. Truth will manifest itself.
So you don't need any explanation of the truth. And that all men are created equal. And what does it say? It says that all human beings living in the United States are equal and created equal. It has, it has also a kind of link with religion, with Christianity, that all men are created equal. So this Christian belief has also been enshrined or also been, included in the Constitution. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, it's a place, it's a state in United States. So he is saying that he will now give some examples of different states and cities of the United States. And he will again and again use the metaphors, use the similes, use the, imageries. I have said metaphor is a kind of comparison in which the quality of one thing is imposed on another. I am repeating, metaphor is a kind of comparison in which the qualities or characteristics of one thing is imposed upon another, or are imposed upon another. And simile is again a comparison in which completely two dissimilar things are compared. A point of comparison is drawn between completely dissimilar things, that is simile. I am repeating, a point of comparison is drawn between two completely different things. So this sort of comparison, metaphor, similes, symbols, and imageries have been used by Martin Luther King. The sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners. He is talking about Georgia and saying that the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. He is saying that the sons of former slave owners, slave, you know what is slave? Slave doesn't mean servant. Slave means a person in Bangla, in Bangla there is a word, and the word is dash. So slave means a kind of person who is completely controlled by his master. So the relationship is master and slave. If the master gives any order to the slave is bound to follow that. There is no option. And the society was something like slave owning society. So sometimes slaves were bought, slaves were sold like products. There would be also arranged kind of, gathering in which slaves were being sold and slaves were being bought, as you see in case of animals, that they are sold and bought and sold in the market. So slave is that kind of person who is owned by the master. So what is his dream? What is the dream of Martin Luther King? He says, he dreams that there will be a day when the sons of slave owners, the sons of masters, will sit with the sons of slaves. So it's a great dream. The sons of masters or slave owners will sit with the sons of slaves at the table of brotherhood, as if, it's a kind of metaphor. At the table of brotherhood, it means at the dining table. So he is not saying they will sit together at the dining table, they will sit at the table of brotherhood. So there will be a kind of brotherhood among the black people and the white people, among the sons of slave owners and the sons of slaves in future. So that is his dream. It's a great dream, but whether the dream has been fulfilled. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice. So he again goes to another state, and he is talking about now Mississippi, another state in the United States. And he is saying the state is sweltering. Sweltering means unpleasingly hot. Now, the state is hot with the heat of injustice. That means injustice is being done to the black people over here to a large extent, immensely. So the state is sweltering with the heat of injustice. Mississippi. The state is sweltering with the heat of oppression. So injustice is being done to the black people in the state of Mississippi. That is meant over here. Sweltering with the heat of oppression, suppression, domination. So they are being oppressed, and the black people are being suppressed over there. And he has used again poetic and language, uh, and that this his language is full of, I am saying, different figures of speech, and sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and injustice. So it's the hot. The state is hot with, or the heat of oppression. So if you compare the condition of the state with a desert, desert is hot. So if you compare this state with the heat of desert, then he expects that we will in future find an oasis of freedom and justice. Oasis means a garden in the desert. So the entire state of Mississippi right now is like desert, because it's full of heat, with heat of injustice and heat of oppression. So this state, he expects, he dreams that one day will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. So injustice and oppression will be replaced by freedom and justice. Desert will be replaced by oasis. Oasis, I said, a garden in the desert. So that is his dream. His dream is that the heat of injustice and the heat of oppression, they will be replaced by the oasis of freedom and injustice. So he has compared the condition with the condition, kind of comparison has been drawn. A desert will be replaced by oasis, and similarly, injustice and oppression will be replaced by freedom and justice. But everything is being told in a beautiful language. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. So it's a great dream that his children, his 4 children, in the United States, they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. So this is, purely he is talking against racism. So he expects that his children and the children of the Negro people, they will not be judged by the color of their skin. They will be judged by the content of their character, by the substance of their character. So that is the expectation of any rational person, that a person should not be judged by his skin or from any racial point of view. Rather, he will be or she will be judged by the content of his or her character. So that should be the dream of everyone in this universe. And that is the dream of Martin Luther King Jr. But his dream, though he is talking about the Negro people over here, but his dream or his speech is not directed to the people, or not applicable to the people of the United States, to the black people of the United States alone. He is talking about the freedom and liberty indirectly. This refers to the freedom and liberty of any person who is discriminated in the world. Similar is the case with Nelson Mandela. You have read the passage on Nelson Mandela, and you have read obviously the speech of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman on 7th March speech. So you can understand that all great people, all great leaders, when they speak against this sort of injustice, and they speak against this sort of oppression and suppression. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, vicious means cruel, racist means people who believe in racism, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. He is expecting that one day words like interposition and nullification will drop from the mouth of the governor of Alabama. That means the governor of Alabama, he will stop, racism. He will stop, interposition and nullification. One means, a kind of intervention, and other means a kind of cancellation. So one day he expects that one day the mayor, the governor of Alabama, he will also declare that no racist action or no racist sentiment will be allowed in this state. So that is the expectation of his speech. And one day, that one day right down in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. He also expects that one day in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. So the expectation is that the white girls and boys and the black girls and boys, they will evaluate one another as brothers and sisters. So that is his dream. So you can understand that what kind of dream he cherishes. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Exalted means elevated. Every hill and mountain shall be made low. When he is talking about valley, he is talking about the black people. So the black people has been, it's again metaphoric language he has been used. So the black people, or you can also say it's a kind of symbolic use of language or expression. So the valley has been compared to the black people. So the valley shall be exalted means that the valley will be raised, elevated. Every hill and mountain shall be made low. So hill and mountain refer to the white people, because hill and mountain are higher, they are taller, and valley, so the difference between valley and hill. So hill is higher. So he says that the valley, and I mean the black people, have to be elevated. I mean their standard has to be elevated, and their height has to be elevated. You cannot increase the height of the valley, definitely not. You cannot decrease the height of the hill. So these are symbolic expression, these are allegorical, these are metaphoric languages and expressions that he has used. So that when the valley will be exalted, that means when the status of the black people will be raised or elevated, and every hill and mountain shall be made low, and when the status, not status, when the position of the white people will be not lowered, but will be equal to the black people, the rough places will be made plain. These rough places don't mean the roughness, I mean the physical roughness of streets and other places. It rather indicates the roughness of heart, the roughness of mind, the roughness of mentality that we cherish. And the crooked places will be made straight. Crooked means twisted places. So he is talking, he is giving example, or he is giving references of different types of places. Basically what I wanted to mean about the places, dear students, that he has used valley, he has used hill, he has used crooked places, plain places. So by means of giving examples of different places, Martin Luther King basically wanted to indicate the differences between the white and the black. And finally what he says, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. So over here he goes back to Christianity, and this religious speech, he uses religious quotation, he uses in his speech, in order to make people understand that even God also wants that every flesh and blood should see it together. That means the glory of the Lord shall be revealed. So the glory of the Lord, the glory of God shall be revealed. So what does it indicate? It indicates that the glory of Almighty has to be revealed, so that people can follow the path of God together. So this is our hope. This is the faith that I will go back to the south with. So he wants to go back to the southern part with this hope in his mind. Now, with this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. Again, he uses, metaphorical language, poetic language. And what does he say? He says that with this faith, that means keeping this religious faith in my mind, we will try to hew out, that means extract, to find or to get something out, to find something out, to get something out, to extract something from the mountain of despair. So this, how he has used the phrase mountain of despair. So despair is so huge that it has been compared, with mountain, the mountain of despair. The mountain itself, has become despair. So mountain of despair means the level of disparity, or our despair, the level of our despair, the gravity of the despair. So it's not an optimistic situation, it's a pessimistic situation. So still we will try to get out hope and faith out of that despair. A stone of hope, a stone of hope we will try to get out from the mountain of despair. So despair is huge, hope is very minimum, but still we will try. We will try to, even he has compared the possibility of hope with a stone, and he has compared the gravity of despair with mountain. So you can just gauge the difference between mountain and stone. So he says that still we will try to get the stone of hope out of the mountain of despair. So this metaphoric use of language we observe in his speech again and again. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. Jangling, rattling, discords means cacophony. That means sound that doesn't give soothing feeling to our ear. So jangling discords means unpleasant sound of our nation. So we want to transform the unpleasant sound that exists in our relationship to a beautiful symphony of brothers. Symphony means beautiful music, soothing music. So this unpleasant music has to be transformed to soothing music of brotherhood. So right now brotherhood is absent. So we want to introduce brotherhood. We want to transform this unpleasant music of discord, music of enmity. So unpleasant music of enmity should be replaced by symphony of brotherhood. So that is our dream. So right now what we observe, that there is no soothing music or soothing relationship among us. So we want to create a symphony of relationship, a symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. So what he says, that with this faith in our mind, we will work together. We will work together means the black and the white, we will work together. We will pray together. So we will also pray together, we will work together, we will struggle together, so we will fight together. To go to jail together, we will even go to the jail together if necessary. To stand up for freedom together, so we will also stand up for freedom together. So black and white people, they should do everything together. Pray together, work together, struggle together, go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. So this we indicates the black people, and indirectly this we also indicates the white people as well, because he doesn't only expect, or he doesn't only want the assistance or help of the black people, he also wants the assistance and help of the white, moderate white people. So he doesn't want a kind of America where only black people live. He wants a kind of United States where all people will live. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. So if America is to be a great nation, so if we expect that America to stand, to emerge as a great nation, what dream I am cherishing, this must come true. So he is saying, so let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Prodigious means remarkable hilltops. So again we will see the beautiful use of language, beautiful use of words and phrases. So he is saying that let freedom ring from the remarkable hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. So the music of freedom, the spirit of freedom, the voice of freedom should come from every corner, from every state of the country. So it should come from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. It should come or ring from the mighty mountains of New York. He is not saying come, he is saying ringing. That means it's a kind of music, freedom. It's a kind of chord of our heart. So freedom should come, freedom should ring from every corner of the society. So it's a beautiful way of expression. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. So Alleghenies is, it's a place, again he is talking about the hilly areas. So he is saying that heightening or raised Alleghenies of Pennsylvania, from there freedom will also ring. And let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi. So he is again saying that let freedom also ring from the molehill means small hill of Mississippi. So from every corner he is expecting that freedom, the bell of freedom should ring from every corner of the United States. From every mountainside let freedom ring. And and again he is when he is giving example, you must have observed one thing, that he is giving the example of hill and mountain. By means of giving the reference, or by giving the references of hill and mountain, he wants to indicate basically to the white people that unless freedom comes, or the spirit of freedom, or comes from the white people, if the white people are unwilling, then it is not possible to introduce this to the in the United States. So freedom must come, freedom must ring from every corner of the society. From every mountainside let freedom ring. So not only from the black people, the music of freedom should not ring only in the houses of black people, but also in the houses of white people. Only then it will be introduced in the United States. And when this happens, when freedom will be introduced, and when we allow freedom ring, and when we will allow freedom, freedom cannot ring, but the spirit of freedom, the music of freedom, the symphony of freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet. Now he is again going to the common people. Now when freedom will ring from every village and every hamlet, village, rural areas, and hamlet also means community and small villages, from every state and every city. So freedom must not only come from the mountains. The bell of freedom also must ring in the village, in the hamlet, in every state and city. We will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, and freedom must come, the bell of freedom must come from the children of God, all the children of God, black men, white men, Jews and Gentiles. Gentiles means who are not Jews, not non-Jewish people, Protestants, Catholics. So you must have noticed that he is talking about all kinds of people who are living in the United States. White men, black men, Jews, Gentiles, Protestants, Catholics. will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. And he expects that all these people, they will come forward and freedom will ring from all the mountains, from all the hills, from all the cities, from all the states, from all the villages, from all the hamlets, and all the people, all types of people of the society should come forward. Only then freedom will be ensured. And he expects that all will sing the Negro spiritual. And what is the Negro spiritual? Free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last. So he expects that all people should come together and they will sing in a single voice that free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last. So it's an abridged version, I have said. So the final expectation of Martin Luther King Jr. is that all types of people, black, white, Catholic, Protestant, Jews, Gentiles, all people should come from the mountains, from the hills, from the villages. That means all strata of the society, all spheres of the society, they have to come forward in order to ensure freedom to the United States, to the people of the United States. Now there are some questions, dear students, to practice, and you have to practice these questions at home. I will just give you some clues so that you can practice these questions at home. What is the text type? An article, a speech, or a short story? Who delivered it? You all know that it's a speech delivered by Martin Luther King Jr. So you have already known that. And who delivered it? I have already said Martin Luther King Jr. What is the text about? The text is about racism. The text is about ensuring the freedom, about ensuring the rights of black people in the United States. Why did Martin Luther King Jr. have these dreams? Martin Luther King has or cherishes these dreams because he wants the prosperity of the people of United States. Not only the prosperity of black people only, but the prosperity of United States as a whole. And he thinks that unless the Negro people are elevated to a good standard, the overall possible prosperity of United States is not possible. That's why he cherishes these dreams. Which of the above dreams do you appreciate more and why? So he has many dreams. So which dream do you think? Do you think that the Negro people and the white people should sit at the table of brotherhood together? Do you think that they have to come to fight together? Do you think that they have to sing together? They have to play together? So which dream do you think? Or do you think that freedom has to be ensured to every individual in the United States? Which one do you think more appropriate? I have my choice and you can also give your choice. So it's better to say that freedom has to be ensured, that freedom should ring from every corner of the society. That dream is probably the most significant dream in this speech. What, according to Martin Luther King Jr., will be the ultimate benefit if his dreams come true? What will be the benefit? If the dream comes true, what will be the benefit? A United States will prosper. United States cannot prosper unless dream of all the people is fulfilled. The Negro people will prosper and the United States will prosper. And it is also written in religion, in Christianity as well, that people should be given, all people should be given the same rights. So human rights will be ensured. Do you think that Martin Luther King's dreams have been fulfilled? Why or why not? It's up to you. You can say whether the dreams of Martin Luther King have been fulfilled or not. You can better say that. So my opinion is that Martin Luther King's dream has not been fulfilled, completely fulfilled so far. Partially it has been fulfilled in the United States, and partially it is yet to be fulfilled. So that is what I want to share with you. Now there were some beautiful words. There were some uncommon words in the speech of Martin Luther King. Some uncommon words were there, some uncommon phrases were there, some metaphors, similes, imageries have been also used in his speech. So his speech is very important, and I hope that you have enjoyed his speech. So you can also try to read at home. You have to try to read at home, and you have to find out different words individually. And next time when I will take classes, I will take classes basically on fill in the gap activities on the lessons we have practiced so far. So text based fill in the gap activities I will do in my next classes, and for that reason I hope that you will practice these things at home. You have to read these passages at home seriously. So till my next class, I expect that you will stay at home and stay safe. So till my next class, I would like to tell you goodbye. Thank you very much.